Thank you, Tom. Evening. Thank you for coming. How many of you, when you signed up for this, it seemed like a really great thing to do, and it seemed very realistic that you have the time for it, and as you get closer, all of a sudden it's like, what? I've got to do what? When? Any of that going on in the room? Cool. I understand. I'm excited to be here. Actually, this work that I'm presenting tonight is a result of a process that I've been involved in myself for over 25 years. I've done over 3,000 programs, and so this is something that I have found has been very much a part of my process. And I have also, in the experience that I've been fortunate to have over the years in the different things that I've done, is I have become increasingly frustrated and disenchanted by the deep desire that people or organizations have to change, but then their ability to really pull it off. And I'm wondering if anybody else in the room has ever experienced any version of that. Okay, and then let me just kind of redo the question. So let's take the word organization out and put you in there. So you have this deep desire, you really care, you really make an effort to lose weight or to change your diet or to create a totally different kind of a relationship or a career, and you really put your full person into it. But for some reason, in a very short period of time, things don't really look like they shift that much. I'm wondering if anyone in the room can relate to that. Yeah, so just do this, go like this, some sort of, okay, good, I'm just checking. So these questions could be for me, but I'm just wondering if there's anyone in the room besides myself that might be experiencing not a little bit of change, but a lot of change in your life. And if so, would you raise your hand? Let me just get a pulse on things. Okay? Not necessarily everybody. How about this? How many people are finding that they're inundated with a lot of information? That the expectation in the response to the information has shortened dramatically? And so there's this press in our life to maintain a tremendous amount of information and communication that we didn't get extra time to manage. So it really has the experience is pressure or more time managing this information and less time taking great care of ourselves. Anyone else? Okay, good. Just checking on that one. How many of you are finding life's fast? And actually not just fast, but it's actually gotten faster. And it seems to be getting faster, and it doesn't look, as you kind of look into the future, that it's going to do what? Slow down. And in some way, when you take a look at your world, and you look at your life, that there's some part of it that feels out, that you're not quite as satisfied with, that you'd like to shift and you'd like to improve. Curious? Anyone? Good. Maybe it would like a big shift in their life. Good. Excellent. So, my wish is that the program tonight is going to offer you a different perspective. It's going to be a perspective that is normally hidden. It's so close that it's like water to a fish. And I'm going to kind of give you established models and experience and ideas and techniques. And yet at the end of the day, we were talking about it earlier, whatever it is that maybe works for me or Joan or anyone else might not work for Jeff. So what's really great is take whatever you get here tonight, find the piece that works for you, try it on, and if it doesn't work, then do what? Find something else. Because that's what we're doing, is navigating through that custom piece, that piece that fits for us, our path, our evolution, whatever it is that's going on for us. So let me just give you a little bit of a background on, over the years, what I call the perceptual underpinnings, or the things that go into the design of this program. So these are assumptions I've made based on my experiences over the years. So the first one is that the only consistent thing is that nothing's consistent. So change. It's the one thing we can absolutely count on, I think, as we go into the future, and I think Tom's really the master in this, and he's the futurist, but I think we can pretty much count on that as information gets faster and it moves quicker into the system, what do people do? They create, they innovate. So what's going to happen is that our world is going to continually shift and change. Most of us do not have a healthy relationship with change. Fair assumption? And then what we do is we make the change the enemy when in fact change is normal and necessary, and what happens is change really responds to us based on us. So the majority of our outcomes are based on our response to what happens to us. So change responds to us based on the way we approach it. One of the things I also believe is that with rapid change or a fast-paced world, there's also increased opportunity. So we have a kind of a Y in the road. We can get overwhelmed, we can get frustrated, we can be inundated. Is there anyone in the room that has had those experiences recently? Like we want to change, but how do we pull it off? But there's also an incredible opportunity that happens with change and things moving faster, because what used to take a long time to shift now can occur very quickly. The question is, what's the key point? What's the button? What's that pivotal point that we can push where change can exponentially shift, where in the past maybe it's taken a long time to retrain ourselves, to repattern our neural pathways, whatever it is, and make significant change in patterns that have been around for a really long time. So the other thing that I will offer is an assumption that I've noticed over the years in all the organizations and all the schools I've been in. What I found is that the greatest asset and the greatest liability, or what I call OFI, opportunity for improvement, is not the systems, it's not the product, it's not the services, it's actually the people. I believe the successful people are the bottom line inside of any organization. So I find at the end of the day that there's no person that is more limiting. There's nothing more limiting in my life than myself. Anyone else find that to be true? I can talk myself in and out of anything. So we are our greatest assets, our greatest gifts, and also our greatest OFIs. The other thing is, consciously or unconsciously, I believe we are always creation in action. We are always creating. Even things that don't look like they're active are creation. So people that wait, is that a creation? People that procrastinate. Yeah, that's a form of creation. In everything we do, consciously or unconsciously, we are creating the reality, the version of the world, and the way the world reflects back to us our perspectives, our beliefs, and our thinking. So we're going to talk a lot about that, and the program's been based on that. And the last thing is that I have found that changing our conditioning, our habits, our behavioral patterns is a living process. No matter how fast things are moving, it isn't, as a rule, something that is a quick fix. And most of us like the concept of going out, getting something, plugging it in, pressing the button, and then, ta-da, I'm different. And what I like to say is, you know what? The patterns didn't get there overnight. They probably took 20, 30, 40 years to be there. Doesn't mean that's going to take that long to get rid of it, but it is a living process. And so what we're going to do is we're going to explore this as a process and take a look at how we can keep it alive. So I think we live kind of in a quick fix, fast food economy society. Would you agree with that? Okay, let me tell you, here's the objectives of the program. First of all, it's to understand the process of manifestation. What I believe is the more we understand how we manifest, the greater our ability to actually manifest what we would like to manifest versus some of the things that seem to just show up and we don't have any control over. So what I believe is that it really gives us that opportunity, increases our capacity to manifest what's important to us. The other thing is, I believe, is it expands your capacity to experience and express life. I actually think that's the core purpose that we're here for. We are here to live and to love. And whatever live and love looks like for you is unique and different for each one of us, but we came here to live. That's what we came to do, to have this life. And the question is, the life reflecting back to us what really brings us joy, what really brings us passion, what really brings us alive and engaged. Are we really playing, or have we just gotten into a pattern because that's what we picked up along the way? And so I think it's really about experience and expressing, and then I'm going to give you some takeaways. These are seeds. This is a short overview tonight. So this is a long program, and it's really designed as a awareness builder, a kind of an aha. It's got a stirring component to it, but it isn't the end deal. So it's like seeds. Seeds don't do anything unless you do what with them? Plant them and, yeah, you got to nourish, cultivate them, water them, do the whole thing. So it isn't magic. There's nothing magic about this. It's just kind of opening the door. Hey, okay? All right. So let's see. Let's do this. What I'd like to do is, I started by saying I'm assuming you have other things that you could have been doing tonight. Is that correct? But you chose to be here. So I'm guessing you're here for a reason. I'd love to hear from some folks just so I can get a sense and cater to what people are kind of looking for. What are you up for? What are you up to?
How to take it up to the next level.
What is that? Okay.
And I've been in business for myself for 2 years now. And it's funny, I've been in the midst of constant change, and I think, yeah, I'm changing all the time. But as you were talking, I started to see, there's stuff that I'm avoiding. There's, I'm falling into some of those backward slipping. Right. Oh God, I just hate dealing with that stuff. Ugh. Right. But getting over those hurdles is really key to punching through and moving it to the next level where I want to be.
Could any of you kind of connect with that, the avoiding, kind of getting lost? Yeah, I got that. And if you were to punch to the next level, what would you have?
A 4-hour work week.
Okay, good. Yeah. So basically what I'm hearing is, besides the 4-hour work week, I believe is more space, more freedom in your world, dedicated to your heart, to what's important to you, not just your work. Am I connecting with that? Good, excellent. So you see what he's up to, no matter what he does tonight, is he's up to space and freedom. He's up to capacity. See, he actually thinks it's in this room. You're up to freedom. Do you see? That's what we're up to. And when we really get clear what we're up to, there's many ways to do it. This might be that, and it might not. But if it's not, you connect with what you're up to, and there's a whole nother world available. A couple more. What are you up to? What do you want? Why are you here? Yeah.
Finding more passion at work, having a process to be able to, a framework to be able to move forward with it.
And that's in your existing work right now, is that correct?
Say that again?
Well, you said finding more passion in work.
Well,
I thought I heard you
maybe
say.
it's doing something different.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it's doing something
So it might be in your framework now, but it might be doing something different. But more passion is what I'm hearing. What would you have if you had more passion?
Feel more centered and have more achievement because you were doing what it is that you felt like you were supposed to do.
Okay. So get what he's up to? Passion. Yeah. Well, the passion, but also what I hear is that there's a level of contribution or achievement that's behind it, fulfillment, whatever it might be, whether it's where you're at or maybe something different. Sometimes we get lost in the strategy, and that's a good thing for us to keep in mind, that we're looking for these important things. Greater capacity to respond in our world, freedom, a sense of contribution, a sense of effectiveness, that I can actually do things in a different way. I have more room and space. How many of you can relate to all of those? What's funny is I find that no matter who we are and how much our backgrounds are different, the color of our skin, our economic value, our belief systems, we're up to pretty much the same stuff. All of us. And when we can connect to that, then we can do this. But if we only connect with strategy, that's individual and personalized and different, and then we battle. We struggle, or we hang out with the people that are like us. Anyone catch that one? Versus what if all of us were up to the same stuff? How many would be interested in the passion? Yes, no, give me, yep. Freedom, space. Do what you want to do when you want to do it.
4-hour work week.
Right, 4-hour work week, yeah. Well, not just the 4-hour work week. I'm assuming it's not just the 4-hour work week, but a 4-hour work that actually pays the bills and above, right? I mean, if you wanted a 4-hour work week, there's a ton of opportunities out there. Is that correct? The 4-hour work week's a book, but it's not just about the hours. It's about how do I work less and make decent money, sufficient money, and do what I love. So we're up to the same thing. Interesting. Maybe we're not as different as we think we are. So let's take a look at it. Here's what I've noticed. In the process of manifestation, it is a cycle. And what I notice in the cycle is that different than a line, which is very common in our culture, is we begin here and we end here. And we get what we want and we feel successful. And if we don't get what we want, we feel like we failed or we're not successful. Sound familiar? Whereas this is actually a cycle. And what happens is we're constantly cycle in this process of manifestation. And what's interesting in this culture that I've seen is that when people want to make a change, and especially a significant one of the biggest challenges, the first thing one of the greatest challenges they have in making the change is that they externalize their process. So what they do is they look at their job, they look at their partner, they look at what they do, they look at how they do it, they look at how much money they make. That's all an externalized world, and a lot of us have been very influenced by a commercialized culture that has subliminally taught us from as young, without even remembering, that at some level we're not enough and that more is better. And if you had this product, you'd be sexier. If you had these clothes, you'd be more attractive. If you had this gizmo higgy, then you'd be more productive. And so we live in a world that externalizes, sells us external things to make us feel like we are better, more successful, cuter. Does this sound familiar? So what we do is we end up working in the external. So what we do is we look at our jobs, we look at our bosses, we look at our partners, we look at our lifestyle, we look at our financial situation, we look at the homes, we look at what we accumulate or what we need more of. And the reason that's a little bit of a challenge is that we find that no matter how much effort it takes to do that most of the time in the end, we find it's not very satisfying, and if it is, it doesn't last very long. How many of you have noticed this? So what this whole twist is on reinventing yourself is it sounds good. I think all of us could say the words, but it's taking a look at the individual, the human software system, our hardware, our wiring, our thinking, our beliefs, our perspectives, the very thing that we project into the world, which creates the jobs we're attracted to, the friends we hang out with, the things we do, what we have and don't have, the priorities, the way we manage time, is all governed internally. It's all very quiet. Of course, we know from a machine, if you want to upgrade the machine, you get these upgrades, and it happens all very nicely. It's now automatic. But the machines are constantly doing what behind the scenes to become better? Upgrading, and it's all invisible. But do people really truly upgrade their wiring, their hardware, their belief systems, their thinking, the feelings, and their conditioning? And what I found is most of the time we don't. So this is going to be taking a look at the internal through a cyclical process. So what you'll notice is on the first page of the handout is just a graphic of the 4 stages of manifestation. And then in the following page, you have tons of information. So what I would recommend is you don't get lost in the information tonight. That information is for you to take away. Trust me, there is more information there than I will cover. But I want you to have more, because there's some people in this room that like information. And they like models, and they like differing viewpoints. This has got it. Okay? So I'm not going to follow along. I'm going to do a high-level overview. We're going to explore each one of the stages and just kind of see where it leads us. Couple things. You might have questions. I totally welcome your questions. It's not at all uncommon that you have a question. I might kind of go, hey, anybody else in the room interested in that? And only 2 or 3 people raise their hand. Then I might go, Greg, would you mind seeing me at the break or seeing me afterwards? Because I can go down a rabbit hole answering somebody's question, and 25 people are going, what are we doing here? Have you ever had that experience in a training room? So I might put it on a parking lot over here. There will be a break. The handout is a guide. It's a tool. That's all. And then between each one of these stages is an activity. There's an opportunity to look at it, explore it, and we'll take a look at, once we understand the process of manifestation, what are the strategies that we can do to actually, if we choose to, consciously move from one stage to another from another. Plus, what are the pitfalls that occur behind the scenes that many times we don't see. So it's like you can say, oh, I procrastinated, or I put it off, or I notice I'm kind of ducking and weaving and kind of doing my ostrich move. But what is actually behind that? What's underneath that? And so these strategies might be able to help you do that. Okay? All right, so that's where we're headed. So the first stage is ignition. So in the ignition stage, I like to use a birth metaphor because a lot of people, I find this to be interesting how people respond to this. Conception to birth. So how many of you know that to birth something, that it is a choice as a rule, whether you make it consciously or not. So there's normally a choice that goes on. Something happens before the birthing process. Is that correct? Is that right? And so we take credit for the birthing process. And of course, there's a lot of things we do with it. But you know what's interesting about conception and birth, if you really look at it, is you can do all kinds of things beforehand to get ready for it, to get prepared for it, to actually ignite it. But the actual process of birth goes on way beyond your control. Whether you get pregnant or you don't get pregnant, or whether you go to term or how long. I've seen some very successful mothers for their first time, and they've done, my partner was like this. It was like she did all the breathing classes, she learned everything, she read all the books, she watched all the DVDs. She had the whole thing wired. She knew exactly when she had everything catered and what was going on and when she was going to birth. And one of the first surprises she had about giving birth was she voted and the universe decides. So the birthing process itself, and I believe ignition, although we love to take credit for our ideas, I believe ideas occur out of the void. So in the ignition process, we might meet somebody, we might have an experience, we might read a book, we might have a person, and we get infused with a new experience, a new idea. It's exciting. It's got a fresh feel to it. It is normally catering to some sort of an unfulfilled desire. That's what ignites us. And it gives us a picture of a desired future. And our response to touching something we want that we don't necessarily have or we'd like more of is what happens to our system. What happens to your system when you get a new idea or you're infused with a new person or a new possibility? What goes on? Yeah, it ignites, it inspires, it energizes, it actually opens up creativity, it opens up the what if. And you start to look at things in a different way, now being compelled by a vision that's different than the way you've been doing things. Make sense? Okay? It's something that normally, I like to call this stage the idealistic stage. So we really believe it's possible. We think we can do it. We've taken a look at our world, and there's what I call a positive expectancy. And we go into it thinking we've kind of looked at what's realistic and what's not and that kind of thing. But what's also interesting about this stage is I was talking to Tom when I was first getting to know him. I mean, as a visionary and as someone who produces future possibilities, ask him, where do your ideas come from? Remember that? Where do they come from? Yeah, right, exactly. And in some way, that's kind of the way we think it happens. But you know what's amazing about ignition? Is most of us, if you take a look at, we love to take credit for it, but where do your great ideas come from? What's that?
Deep inner stillness.
That can be one of the places. And what I've found is that ideas can come from Carol. They can come from a street sign. They come out of my shower. They come out of driving down the road. They come out of my meditations. But what I notice is across the board is ignition is rarely something you get up in the morning and go, today I'm going to come up with a brilliant idea. Matter of fact, I'm going to do 3 by lunch. Normally it doesn't happen that way. Where does it come from? Yeah, it is inspired by something, and that something is greater than us. Call it whatever you want. The void, the mystery, God, whatever it is. But what's amazing is that we love to take credit for our great ideas, but they actually come from where? The mystery. It's just like conception to birth. There's something greater going on that infuses. How many of you notice that ideas normally will just come out of nowhere? You'll be driving down the road. I mean, I think you were saying, Tom, if I'm not mistaken, you were saying that you get a lot of your great ideas in the shower. Is that correct? But do you go into the shower going, okay, great idea today, I'm looking for the great idea, turn the water up to warm, I'm up for the great idea. Is that what he does?
Sometimes it takes 4 or 5 hours.
Right, so what's interesting about this is we love to look at this and kind of take credit for it, but what this does is it gives us a chance to take a look at, well, okay, if we don't actually create these great ideas, can we create the condition, the culture where they can be cultivated? But you can't control when they come through. And so that's important to kind of just notice that, at least from my perspective. My greatest ideas show up. They show up with a person. They show up with a synchronicity. They show up with pain. Some of my greatest gifts have come out of my hardest toils. Anyone else in this room? And if I hadn't have gone through that, I wouldn't be who I am today. And if you asked me before I got into it whether I would choose to do it, I would have said, you got to be kidding me. So life is fertile with possibility. And how do we actually cultivate that? So the other thing that happens is that there's a willingness to take risks, to take action. There's an excitement and exhilaration and enrollment, and what I call like an innocence. We move into it. We have the vision, we've been sparked, it's ignited, and now we move. So a couple other metaphors that I like to use is, if you've ever been around the stages of group development or relationship, this is called the forming stage. How many of you ever been in a relationship, and in the beginning of the relationship, the infatuation stage, everybody familiar with this? Everything looks what? Peachy keen. And it really does look different. I mean, it really looks different. I mean, I'm being realistic about it. I'm not trying to fool myself. And it looks really different. So in this stage, same thing with teams. We come together for a common vision. We come together for a common goal. We're ignited. We're passionate. We move in and we start the forming stage. Another great one is the butterfly metamorphosis. Most people understand parts of the butterfly metamorphosis, but it's interesting as I've studied this over the year, one of the first things a butterfly does, obviously it starts as a caterpillar, is one of the first things that happens is there is something instinctual. There is a timing. There's something that gets turned on inside the caterpillar. It doesn't go Tuesday at 5 o'clock, I'm starting the cocoon process. Same thing with migrating, same thing with human people. It's with humans, is there's an instinct. There's a timing, there's an ignition that occurs inside the caterpillar. And what's amazing is what the caterpillar starts doing is it starts eating. And it starts eating a lot. I've read some information that says 10,000 times. Now, I haven't seen a caterpillar that big, but I'm thinking 100 times its body weight, whatever it is, it starts consuming anything in sight. And then what it does is it gets so big and so fat that it attaches itself to a tree, a limb, a branch, and it hangs upside down. That's the first stage of a butterfly. So, and then it starts building the cocoon. In a competence stage, you might be familiar with learning and that kind of stuff. Have you ever learned how to drive a car and you're really excited to drive a car, and all of a sudden you get behind the wheel of the car and you realize that how much you don't know about what it takes to drive a car. You're what is called unconsciously incompetent. So we want to start a business, we want to take our business to the next level, and what's great is that if you were really good at taking your business to the next level, you would have already done it. So it's in the unknown. And our thought of the vision hasn't put us to where we haven't been before. So we're unconsciously incompetent of what we know and don't know until we get there. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa. And we can turn back with that. Okay, does this make sense? Okay, so what I'd like to do is go ahead and stand up. So I'd like you to get with two other people, and particularly someone that you don't know. So two other people, kind of get with them and wait for further directions. What would you consider to be the seeds of something new that's going on in your world right now, something that would represent something very alive for you that's been ignited. So some idea, some thought, some desire that's actually real. It's not just kind of out there and you've always wanted it, but it's actually alive. What would be something that you would consider to be ignited in your current life right now? And just share it with the people you're with. And what I'd love to have you do in these is stay away from the stories. So what I mean by that is I don't need the whole background of where you've been in your whole career and what it's taken for you to get there, and you've been here this long and you've been trying to break out of this for the entire world. Just go right to it. What would you say is the seed, an idea, something that's been ignited in your life that you're excited about, and share it with the group? Before you sit down, I'd love to have you connect with what's going on inside of you right now. One of the things I'm going to offer, especially in these next stages, is absolutely nothing that's going on outside of us is happening that isn't going on inside of us. Because whatever it is we're attracted to in our life, whether it's people, whether it's jobs, whether it's our careers, whether it's our playtime, whether it's our homes, are all based on an internal projection of our values, of our thinking, of our conditioning, projected onto the world, and the world reflects back to us who we are. So what's happening inside of you right now as you connect with ignition and new beginnings? See what's happening. Check into your energy, your feelings. What's happening? Let's hear a couple things. It's firing. It actually has, when you focus on it, it normally, you went like this too, which it can have maybe bubble or something. I don't know. Okay? What else? What else? Let's get a sense of the energy of ignition.
I'm rejecting everything you say.
Beautiful.
And everything you say, I have to have a counterpoint to.
Wonderful. Welcome to you. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Oh, that is gorgeous. Okay. Now, my guess, I don't know if this is true because I so don't know you at all. It's part of the way you've learned to navigate in the world. So you determine what isn't okay for you to determine what is, and you filter it through that process. It's the way you've learned to kind of, and immediately, if something doesn't go the way you want it to go, you go through this process to discern your way around following what's your truth, not somebody else's. Does that sound?
Yeah, I think I probably was fairly independent my whole life.
Okay.
So if somebody said, let's walk here, I'm here.
Beautiful. And see, this is wonderful because then one of the beautiful things, whether you might know this about yourself, is that what you notice is whenever you come up against a new idea or a possibility, the first thing you'll do is counter it. My business partner was like this, and we knew that whenever we presented something to Kim, the first thing she would do is go to what wouldn't work about it, and we knew we were right on track. Because that's the way she learns to process new information. At first we'd get frustrated with it, and then all of a sudden we went, well, you know, Kim, the first thing she's going to need to do is push on it. So we would always give enough room for Kim to push on it. What was amazing about Kim is that it'd take her about 12 to 24 hours, and most of the time she'd either come back with a totally different view or a really good pushback, and she'd come back open. And where we failed is trying to get her to be open in the beginning and not honoring who she was. So that's why I went, welcome to you. Because you know what? It's impossible. It has nothing to do with me.
No.
Yeah, it's just all about what we like, what we don't like, what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong. This immediate discerning we do internally like this. Click, click, tick, chink, 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 and all of a sudden the label is, don't like you, don't like what you're doing. That's just the way we learn to discern. I believe that's what I've noticed. Cool. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Yay. And actually there's a smile there. Good. Okay, cool. Love it. What else? What else? What else? What's the energy of ignition?
Enthusiasm.
Yeah, there's enthusiasm for you. Yep. What else? Happiness. You notice maybe you didn't come in feeling very ignited tonight, but when we touch it, it has a living energy to it. What else? Anyone else?
Calming.
Say it again?
Calming.
Calming. Interesting. Good. So, yeah, who knows? Because what I find is that calming normally occurs when I touch truth. So it might be true for Jeff, but I'm not getting it. So I'm a little angst. But the second that I hear something and it's true for me, my system goes like this. How many of you do that? When we learn to pay attention to the internal, it will guide us on this path of the perfection of the very vision that we want is wanting us. How do we know? It showed up in your field out of nowhere. The very thing you want wants you by the very fact it showed up. And when I create a living connection with it and I discern through my experience, it's a different way to do it than most of us navigate through our mind. Pros, cons, information, like, dislike, right, wrong. The problem with the mind is it's always like a computer, information in, information out. So it's always based on what's happened to us in the past, and that's why we repeat the old in a new package. Sound familiar to anyone? Anything else? Energy? 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 Yeah. It was stuck, but now it's moving. Yes. You know what I love about all this is where are those dang solar plexus? I mean, I know, that's what I do. We hear the word and we go, oh, solar plexus, it's right in there. Really? Can you show it to me? And what does even moving look like for us? So it's a wonderful, it's like an energetic move. We can tell where we are in our stages if we really get connected inside.
Is it always a positive place to be?
Actually,
because I was just thinking that, I've had many opportunities that have created ignition in me on many different ideas, and now I'm at the point where I'm wanting to manifest these ideas I have that are I'm perfectly capable of doing it. So for me, ignition also comes with some fear and anxiety.
Absolutely.
How am I going to get from this place, which I've been for so long, to the next place where it's
Beautiful.
Actually really happening?
Yeah, so the question that I'm hearing is it always positive? Does it come with other things? Actually, you know what? Yes. Always. Because we live in a polarized world. So when I'm working with people, whenever someone has a vision, the first thing I want to do is to find the fear. But what's really cool is there's a whole nother reality beyond polarity. But it will not occur until I touch them both. So if I only go with excitement and optimism, I'm going to draw in the shadow expressed in other ways. But when I actually connect with both the vision and the fear or the frustration or the angst that goes with it, and I connect with the energy of those two, it brings us right into the next stage. So it's a great question. It's very common. How many of you find you can have a vision, and right behind that vision will show up what? Holy, right. Well, I wasn't going to quite say it that way, but I'm totally into that. So I actually would say you're on to something when it comes with the holy shit. Because then we know we're on the edge of a full experience. So absolutely. Now the question is, what do we do with the shadow, the disowned self? And that's what the next stage is going to do. Okay? Great. Do me a favor. Thank the people you're working with, please. Thank them. And then have a seat real quick. So again, the idea of manifestation is that what I have found is that it is a cycle. And what happens is at any point in the cycle is we can stop the process. So a great example is if you ever met people, I know there's nobody in this room that's like this. I know there are other people that do this. Okay? Have you ever met people that have great ideas? They actually talk great ideas. And they're really good at manifesting great ideas. But it doesn't actually go much farther than that. How many of you ever met people like this? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but what I'm offering is that if you're looking to fully engage in life, the only thing you're doing is you're getting just part of the process of manifestation. You're only getting a piece of the full Monty, of the full possibility. And so they love the juice of the ideas. Like a great example is for me, for so many years in relationships, I would go to a certain point, move into this next stage I'm going to talk to you about, and it would totally scare me, and it would bring up everything that I did to take me out of the game. And so what I would do is externalize it, and I would trade in my partner for a new model. So I dated the same woman with a different name for years. And I wondered why I couldn't quite get intimacy or a relationship. And what happened, there's nothing wrong with what I did, but I never could get past that part of what I manifested until I went into this next stage. So what I would offer to you is each one of these stages have what I call pitfalls or turning points. And the more we can be aware of those, the more we can catch ourselves when we normally go this far, but we don't go into the next stage. So here's the pitfalls. And again, you have this all in your handouts. The first thing I noticed that's very common in this culture is that one of the first things that we do that turns back is the reason why I couldn't get what I wanted, why I couldn't break through to the next level, why I couldn't find passion in my life, why I couldn't be in the relationship I really wanted, why I really couldn't find inner peace within my being, is I've got all these reasons, normally they're outside of me, of why I couldn't do it. Have you ever met people, nobody in this room, that have excuses? You always know you got one in their hand as I go like this, Jeff, how was it going with that? And Jeff goes, well, you know, it was great until blah, 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 blah. Another big one is we love to do what with our power? Give it away to other people. I'm doing my job. I've got a full and gorgeous and generous heart, but that person's being a real jerk. I know nobody in this room has ever done that. That is just me, right? So what we do is we put it on somebody else so we don't have to what? Look at it, because it's very uncomfortable to look at it. Another one is that we want it, but we're not willing to do what it takes. We want the body of someone who works out. We're just not we're not interested in the exercise or the diet. Anybody in this room like that?
Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. See the little pictures and oh, I'm really there. But what it actually takes to do it, we're not that committed. And the other thing is a big one is that we talk ourselves out of what we want because we are so conditioned and comfortable with what we have. That's what we know. And so we go back to what is known and we talk ourselves back into, well, you know, really, it's not that big of a deal. I really did. Anyone do that? Anyone talk yourself out of things? These are common pitfalls. In the first page of your handout, you've got this model. What I wanted to offer to you here visually is that there's nothing wrong with turning back at any part of the stage, as I mentioned before, but do you notice that in the possibility of life, which is a fully expressed circle, which is fully expressed love, I'm only getting a piece of it. Nothing wrong with that if you're okay with a piece of life. Personally, I didn't come here for the piece. I came here for the goods. And I'm really excited about having an experience of all the different phases of manifestation, and especially the next one. Okay, number 2, creative tension. I would say this is the one that gets most of us. Because most of us didn't have the conditioning, most of us didn't have the programming on what to do with the uncomfortable, what to do with the unknown, what to do with anger, what to do with frustration, what to do with self-doubt, what to do with fear. And yet these very things are the energy that creates. So remember, in the first stage, an idea is in energy. It's coming out of the void. It's an energetic thought at that point. It has not come into form yet. So this stage is designed by the universe to build the creative life force and the energy to take energy and create matter. So remember, the first stage is ideas. It's a thought. It's a process. It's not, you don't have it yet, right? This is the stage that the universe has given us to move from energy into matter. And it needs a lot of energy to pull it off. So here's what this stage is filled with. First of all, it's kind of like, I like to think of it in the life one. So we've got conception, we've got birth. This is the infant. This is the infant that's moving from being totally... How many people have kids? Great. How many people were kids at one point? Okay, good. Just checking. So this is that incredible stage of a child's life where it's taking in everything, but it's also trying to figure out how to navigate in a material world, what the rules are, how you do it, what's right, what's wrong, how do I get love, approval, and appreciation from the people that are caring for me. It's a very dynamic, the first 7 years of a person's life forms 80% of their behaviors for the rest of it. That is huge. The reason why is this is a very juicy time when we're very open, we're very we can be very influenced by the world, and there is tons of things going on inside of our brain and inside of our body as it's getting used to this material existence. So, as far as what is in this is where we take the vision and we start to take it on. We not only are willing to take the risk, but we actually start experiencing it and trying it on. It is very common in this stage that we can be challenged by old thinking, old beliefs, and old patterns that have become known and comfortable in a brain science way. It's the old neural pathways that we learned in growing up. So that creates a great challenge for us. It can be a lot of times in this stage kind of like disillusionment and disappointment. It's like what I call we're on the path and we get a taste of the hindrances along the way. In the first one, we were excited, we thought it was possible, we're in, and now all of a sudden it's much bigger than we thought it was. Plus, remember, I believe we're our greatest asset at OFI. We start getting in our own way. And so it starts building up energy. The things that we do that keep us from what we want surface. Because when we bump into challenges, when we bump into problems, what happens to our system? What do you do when you hit a challenge or a problem? Some people might give up, but most of us, what happens if we're not giving up, and actually giving up takes a lot of energy, it actually gets us going. It creates stress, it creates energy, it puts us into play. We try to figure it out, we try to rally, we try to collaborate, we're trying to figure I just finished, I was evacuated from my home in the fire for 31 days. Boy, what that activated inside of my system? A tremendous amount of energy. Now I can run from it or I can actually leverage it. So this is a very important stage to realize this is how the universe builds the energy to take energy and create form. Turmoil and questioning the desired change. A lot of times this stage can feel out of control because it's new, it's different, it's outside of the box. Of course, if it was, I was just saying it, it's like it's a new level. If he was good at new levels, he would already be there. This is a whole new world. He hasn't been there. That's part of the alluring, the attraction, and the ignition. But the truth is, clueless. And I'm bringing the old me to the party. See how juicy that is? I want it, but I am absolutely clueless. I have no idea to do it, or it wouldn't be new. So I'm in this place of the vision and the old mixing together in a riptide, and the energy of creative tension is like this. And the whole purpose is for the universe to do what? Yeah, but the universe is always changing. What's it doing for us as human beings? What's the purpose of this? This is a very important stage in manifestation. What's it doing? But even before the transformation, it's actually building the energy for the transformation, which is from the idea into form. We need this energy. That's why it's called creative tension. In this stage, there's a deep confrontation of the heart. We ask ourselves, do I really want it? Is it really that important to me? Now all of a sudden we realize that wanting a body of somebody who works out and actually working out are two different things. And we really come up against the very things we do that sets us up for the diet, that set us up for the exercise patterns, that set us up for the choices we make to do this and not do this. It invites us deeply into our heart to find out whether we're really committed to it. And we confront the very essence of our vision and our past in one place. It is very common in this stage: chaos, discomfort, resistance, frustration, confusion, endless questioning based on the yes, no, good, bad, right, wrong polarity. How many of you notice that? You can get frozen here because for every possibility you can find an opposite. And the mind loves opposites because it keeps it engaged. So it's very common in this stage that we can get overwhelmed, confused, frustrated, angry, because the vision isn't doing what? What's it not doing? It's not doing what I want it to do, when I want it to do it, how I want it to do it. And you know what? It's not supposed to. That's only one component, because there's a mystery, a universe, something greater that's going on that even brought this into your world. And the idea is to stay in the richness of this incredible mix and energy and cultivate the energy to continue to follow your vision, or to be honest and say, I really don't want the body of someone who works out, and I don't want to be healthy, and to be okay with that. So it's a choice point. This is a why in the road. Now, can you imagine from a conditioning standpoint, what do you think most of us do in the creative tension stage? What's that? What'd you say? Drink, absolutely. That's one response. Because if I drink, it's just, I don't have to look at it. Right? Say it again?
Escape however.
Yeah, it just kind of does whatever it does, and I can kind of get away from it because it's uncomfortable. Why do we drink? There's a lot of energy that's going on. What else? What's our conditioning around this stage? Do most of us embrace it? Do most of us go in and jump into our emotions? Do most of us try to find the polarities and go, okay, I'm scared and I'm hopeful. I've got positive expectancy, and yet I'm frozen.
Feels like being out of control.
Absolutely. It totally feels like being out of control. Yeah? And then again, my question is, what's your number when you feel out of control? Because remember, what's beautiful about this stage, more than anything else, Morgan Freeman said it in Evan Almighty. When you ask for $1 million to God or the universe or whatever, you think I'm going to give you $1 million? That isn't any fun. I'm not going to give you $1 million. I'm going to give you you. And I'm going to give you all of the things you do that keep you from your $1 million, so that you can make a different choice. And when you do that, attract what's really true for you, because you have free will. This is a stage where we give our will up and our power up, or we own it. And it's a very juicy why in the road. And most people in the conditioning don't know what to do with this, so they go back to their patterns, what's allowed them to feel safe, what they know, what's familiar. And whether that's drinking, or it's overwhelm, or it's feeling out of control. Like for me, when I feel out of control, a lot of people might stop. I actually move faster. How many of you do that in the room? I get very busy. Very busy, very important, and then I just don't quite have the time. I have all the greatest intentions, but I don't quite have the time to do it. Anyone like that? It's all different for different people. The bottom line is, how do we deal with this unknown component in this particular stage? Any questions on this? I'll give you a quick example, and then we'll do an activity on this. How many people know what hacky sack is? It's interesting. When we started it in 1979, there wasn't a hand in the room that was raised. It was interesting, when I came into the game by the person that actually invented it, it was known as a group of long hairs, hippies we were called at that time, that smoked these funny little cigarettes, and they stood in a circle kicking this funny little bag around. How many of you know it to be that? There was another group of us, these athletes, that had a vision for it. Our vision was that this was something that was under $10 you could put in your pocket. It was something that brought people together in a collaborative, collective circle where everybody played and everybody win. It was not a competitive game. Anybody could do it if they stayed with it. And it was something that was affordable, and it was really great for athletes. So this first stage of ignition, when I was brought into the hacky sack team, this small little tiny group of people, we were totally excited, but we had this huge vision of what it was going to do. So we're in the creative tension stage. Great idea. What do we do with it? And all of a sudden we realized the grandmothers that we were paying to sew these bags as we started selling them couldn't produce them fast enough. So we started going into international manufacturing. Now that's really easy nowadays with email, but at that time you're talking teletexts. You're talking teletexts. It's an interesting word, like a fax and a teletype at the same time. Very difficult to speak the language of some of the foreign countries that could get the price point down, and we came into all kinds of problems. What we did is we realized that we had to come up with strategies that would seed it at a very young age. So we wanted to get into the schools. Do you think the schools were excited about bringing people in with new ideas that were going against their system, which was about competition, the president's physical fitness test? No. So we had to figure out how to get into the schools and seed it. We had to learn how to get in at the core level. And so there were all these incredible ideas that we had, tournaments and festivals and championships. And every time we turn around, we would hit a wall. We would hit another challenge. And so this idea was there, but the reality of making it happen was a totally different thing. Getting into the schools was a totally different thing. Once we were into the schools, like we landed an organization that booked assembly programs. You know what assemblies are? Remember that, where you all came together as a school? And then you come in, we would introduce juggling and footbag or hacky sack to the whole school, and then we'd try to get into the physical education departments. A very big deal to get that handled. We were looking for sponsors, but sponsors weren't looking for us. We were so small, we knew if we had a sponsor, we could get some credibility. We went to the trade shows and got laughed at by Nike and Puma and all the big boys. We literally went into the trade shows in the beginning days, and we were living in vans and making $600 a month, traveling into the school systems. We go into the trade shows with our stuff in backpacks because we couldn't afford a booth. And then when we finally got a booth, we were laughed at by the big boys because we were just kind of a redheaded stepchild. Everybody thought we were just kind of a bunch of punks. Well, you know what was interesting about these punks? Is that the professional version of footbag, which most people don't know, was played over a 5-foot net in a 22 by 44-foot court. Tennis with your feet. It's one of the most athletic sports in the world. And so when we would go out there and demonstrate that, we opened people's minds. When we showed it was a cooperative sport that involved everybody, we started opening people's minds. But it was a very, very difficult time. The funding was never there. The vision was there. It was very juicy, people coming and going, promising things, not delivering. Does this sound familiar at all to your life? We wanted it, but it was a very tough time. 4 men, and it was men at that time, in a little tiny van, sleeping in little tiny hotels, doing 113 schools, traveling 15,000 miles in 8 weeks, making $600 a month, kicking a stupid little bag around for a bunch of people, hundreds and hundreds of people a day, and traveling 200 miles just to seat it. Very dynamic, would you agree? Filled with everything. Okay, so here's the exercise. Would you go and stand up? First thing I'd like you to do is let's get a sense of this stage, because it's important to connect with this stage. The first thing I want you to do is cross your arms. Okay? Notice if you got a hand on top, hand on the bottom. Okay? And then cross it the other way. How is that? And notice whether, if I just keep talking, what you naturally will do. You just go back. Because why? Listen to it. It was like, it's hard. What else is this like when you do it the other way? It's uncomfortable. And what's the natural knee-jerk response, most of us, to conditioning to being uncomfortable? What do we want to do? We want to go back, right?